Was that the first kind of open to anybody?
Yeah, it was the first. It was the first open campus computing resource, basically.
Okay.
Effectively, what we did was we reported to Carl McDowell, who was assistant to the provost and the president. Technically, they like to say that we reported to the provost. The reality is, anytime you needed money, anybody between you and the president could say no, but nobody could really say yes. They could.
When we were selling time, that for some years it helped enormously. It was
I mean,
over 50% of the budget.
Yeah, there were quite a number of years in the '80s where there were
fundamental mistakes I think the university made back before I started. In some ways, the university decided that it didn't really want to spend the money to bring in the computer facilities that it really ought to have, that it really thought it ought to have. And so it decided that a way it could do that would be to sell computer time to outside commercial businesses. So we were actually a commercial data center for a number of years. And the reason I call that a fundamental mistake is that you had to account for all of that stuff. You had to charge those people. And there was essentially a mindset was that, okay, then what we're going to do for the rest of the campus is we're going to charge the campus departments for all their computing resources as well.
It's not the students were, their departments were given a budget. And, you know, effectively, the model was, it costs so much to do this, so we're going to set rates. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take the part that the university is paying for the computing system, and we're going to parcel that up among all the departments using it, so they get a piece of it. And that part I don't think would have caused that many ripples, because ultimately that would have been soft, but where it caught a lot of flack was when the faculty member had a grant. Mm-hmm. They were charged what the rates were. This was at a time when NSF in particular, which was always the major agency that funded research in those days at Rice, was saying, you know, we think computing ought to be overhead. And you know, a lot of places embraced that and jacked their overhead rates up to 80%, and did so quickly before NSF got wise to that. Unfortunately, Rice didn't move that fast, and therefore was stuck with a much lower rate in the 40% range, and with people having to figure out how to try to write money into grants at a time when the foundation was moving more and more to saying, we're not going to do it that way. And so
or maybe they'd buy you a computer, but they wouldn't pay for computer.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, by the late '70s, it was, we'll buy you a computer, but we won't pay for charges for a central computing center. The reality is that the chargeback system created a great deal of tension between the computing center and and the academic community, and its demise eventually, well, it kind of became moot after some point. By the early '90s, any notion of ever getting a chargeback on the latest mainframe purchase had gone away, and so